Stefanie here. Welcome back. I've got another exciting recipe to share with you today. And before I begin, I'm holding a little bowl of raw cacao powder here, a little sneak peek into what I'm going to show you today. And while we're getting started, I would love for you to write in the comments right now, what's your favorite food to combine with chocolate? So let me know. And I'd like to introduce myself. Maybe you've seen me here before, but if you're new to these, welcome. It's great to have you here. My name is Stefanie Doherty, and I'm a whole food plant-based chef and cooking instructor. I share my recipes at Green Sage Life on social media, and I would love to connect with you there as well. But today our friends at Amla Green have invited me to share my recipe for chocolate strawberry truffles. And this is a really nice recipe to make a healthy yet decadent dessert for maybe an at-home dinner party, especially as that might be coming up this month in February if you've got any at-home Valentine's or Galentine celebrations planned. But if Valentine's Day is not your thing, that's totally okay, because this recipe is all about self-love as well. It's just healthy, it's delicious, it's a decadent treat, but you wouldn't know that it's also really good for you. So let's see what people are saying. Christine says she loves to combine chocolate and cherries. Oh my gosh, that's a really good one. I love that. I love strawberries, like obviously. I'm going to show you this recipe today. Vicky's writing from Indiana. Hi, Vicky, welcome. Candy is watching from New Jersey. This is great. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite food to combine with chocolate? Mine, I'm going to say strawberries, but I also do love cherries, just like Christine said. Candy says chocolate and peanut butter. That's another amazing one. Nuts in general go great with chocolate. Let's see who we've got here. John and Diana from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Great to see you. It's really close to where I grew up. Hope you're staying warm today. And they like blueberries with chocolate. Yes, also I love bananas. Great. Okay, this is so good. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Really excited to show you this recipe because not only is it decadent and delicious and healthy, but it's also super simple to make. You don't have to bake anything. I will be using a food processor, and I'm just going to tell you right now what the ingredients are. So I've got some medjool dates that I have pitted these, and I'm soaking them in some hot water. You can see, well, I don't want to tip it over, but there's still hot water in here. And especially if yours are dry, you'll want to soak them to soften them. It'll be easier to blend them in the food processor that way. I've got some chopped strawberries. Those are going to go in. Raw cacao powder. And I've got some almond flour. And this is a special almond flour. And I'll get to that in just a moment. And I've got Amla Green elderberry tea, the featured ingredient today for this recipe. If you have Amla Green hibiscus at home, you could use that instead. That would work great as well, but that's going to add a lot of extra antioxidants and healthy ingredients, vitamin C to the recipe. And then I'm going to be using just a little bit of pure maple syrup, some vanilla extract, and some almond butter. And those are all the ingredients. So it's really simple. You don't have to bake this. It's just going to sit in the fridge or the freezer to firm up at the end. And I'm really excited to show you. So let's get started right now. As I've mentioned, I've got these pitted medjool dates in a bowl here, and I've covered them with hot water. I just heated the hot water up in my electric kettle. You could just use tap hot water or, heat water up in your microwave or on the stovetop. But to pit dates, if you buy your dates whole like this, these pretty medjool dates, usually I use a steak knife and I just slice it lengthwise. And then I open it up with my thumbs and pull out the pit. Sometimes there's also a little stem on the end here, which you might be able to see. You want to discard that as well. And then I've got the dates that are now soft in my hot water. So there's a sink right here. I'm just going to drain away the water. And I will press out a lot of the water too, because I don't want these to be too wet as I put them into the food processor bowl, which I've got here on the table in front of me. So those will go into the food processor. Nice and easy. And then I'll add, that was a half cup, by the way, of medjool dates. And then I've got a half cup of chopped strawberries, raw. You can use frozen as well if you'd like to. You might want to thaw them first just to make it easier to blend them, but just a half cup after they've chopped, or after you've chopped them, then you can measure them and put those in the bowl. And we're going to put all of our wet ingredients in the food processor bowl together at first. So the next step will be to put my almond butter. The almond butter I use is just one ingredient, raw almonds. There's no oils added. So as you're shopping for yours, you might want to look for that too. Pick this up at Trader Joe's. You can usually find it just about anywhere next to the other nut butters in your grocery store. I'm using this silicone spatula just to kind of coax the almond butter into the food processor bowl as well. Quick and easy there. And just get it all in because that's a lot of nice flavor to the recipe. And then while I'm holding my 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, I'm also going to put in a tablespoon of pure maple syrup. This is another ingredient where you want to read the ingredients before you buy it. Check the label. It should have only one ingredient, just pure maple syrup. A lot of brands have, caramel coloring and high fructose corn syrup, and that's not what we're looking for here, since we're really going for the most healthful, least processed, least refined ingredients we can. And then I'm going to add a teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now, if you're avoiding alcohol for any reason, you could just use an alcohol-free vanilla extract. You can usually find that alongside the other bottles of vanilla extract at your grocery store, so take a look for it if that's important to you. And those are all of the wet ingredients that go into this recipe. So I'm going to go back to my food processor, which is just on the table behind me here on the counter, and blend that up. While I'm doing that, we have a special gift for you. It is a free coffee guide. So if you would like to get a whole collection of free recipes to use the Amla Green coffee, yes, it's not just tea, we've got some coffee too, and the recipes run the gamut. Our producer, Bess, is going to give you a little sneak peek into that guide while I'm blending, but things like smoothies and granola and everything, it's a really great, awesome guide. So type the word coffee in the comments while I'm blending if you would also like to receive the free coffee guide. So I'm going to go back to the food processor and blend this up, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I have blended up the fruit and the wet ingredients, so you can kind of see it looks a little bit like this, a puree. And I'm going to grab a mixing bowl now, just an empty mixing bowl here, and I'm going to transfer the fruit and almond butter and maple syrup puree into this mixing bowl. In order to do that, I will take out the blade first, and of course you always want to be super careful handling the blade of a food processor. What did I do with my tool? I use the tool it comes with, and a lot of times people just throw these away when they buy a food processor. This comes with the machine for a reason. It's a hard plastic, and it's less likely to get marred by the blade, and it's usually also square, so you can use it to get all the way into your food processor bowl, all the way around the edge in the corner, and transfer the mixtures to, out of the food processor. So hold on to this tool, and we're just going to transfer this mixture now to my mixing bowl just a little bit. It should be about a cup of food because we had a half cup each of the pitted medjool dates and the chopped strawberries. So it's just a little bit of food. If you don't have a food processor, you could also use a little blender, like a NutriBullet blender for this part of the task. And okay, it's all in there. I'm just gonna set this aside. Rinse my fingers in the sink here. They got a little sticky. And now I'm gonna add the dry ingredients to this mixture. And I've already showed you. I've got a 1/4 cup of raw cacao powder. I'm gonna add that to the mixture. And then I've got a 1/4 cup of almond flour, and it's not just any almond flour. The almond flour I like to use has had some of the fat extracted. And so it's like the almond equivalent of peanut butter powder, which you might know under the brand PB2. So this is defatted almonds that have been ground into a powder. And the reason I like to use this for this recipe is because it takes away a lot of the fat and calories, and it makes it a little bit more of a healthful dessert. Now, if you don't have the defatted almond flour, you can order that on Amazon, by the way. Just search for defatted almond flour. It should come right up. You could just use a regular almond flour in its place. So if you're not as concerned about the fat content, you could use regular almond flour. But if you are one of our friends who is following a whole food plant-based low-fat diet, for example, for blood glucose control, then the defatted almond flour would be a really good choice. And then the only other dry ingredient we have to add is the amla green elderberry tea. So I'm going to add that now, 2 scoops. Just like this. It's really good, adds vitamin C and antioxidants, which, as you probably know, does so many wonders for your body, reduces inflammation, it boosts the immune system, and amla in particular reduces your cholesterol, blood pressure. It's really, really good for your body, gives you a metabolic boost. So it's a great idea to get this into your daily routine. I drink mine every morning with breakfast, and then I also add it into recipes like this throughout the day. So we're going to take these dry ingredients and we're going to stir them into the wet ingredients. And we're going to keep stirring until we don't see any more dry streaks in the batter. And this is part of the reason why we wanted to squeeze out the water from the dates before we added them to the food processor, because we want the consistency of this batter to be almost fudge-like. So like a really thick batter, brownie consistency, maybe even as thick as like a cookie dough. Maybe not quite as firm as that. As you can see, we're getting closer. Just gonna keep stirring here until all of the powder has been absorbed into the wet ingredients. It does take a little stirring, and actually, if you wanted to spare yourself the stirring, you could also have added the dry ingredients here to the food processor after you pureed the fruit together. You could have left everything in the food processor and just added the dry ingredients on top, and then continued to pulse and process it until it was a smooth dough. I'm almost there here, you can see, starting to get thick. And one other tip that I actually meant to demonstrate, but I was so excited to show you that I forgot, is sometimes it's helpful to pour your cacao powder into the bowl or the food processor through a mesh strainer so that you can sift it in and you can kind of get rid of the clumps in advance. So that's another way to make it a little easier for yourself. And any clumps that are in the mesh strainer while you're sifting it, then you take a spoon and you kind of stir it around and press it through the mesh strainer in order to get rid of the clumps before you try to stir them in. Okay, so we're pretty close here. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So it's a really thick, fudge-like, brownie batter-ish cookie dough consistency. You can see right here. So what we're going to do next is, I'm going to set this next to me here, and I have a plate. And then I've got a tray that I have lined with some parchment paper. This is a half baking sheet. You want to choose a surface that's going to fit into your refrigerator or your freezer, because we're going to freeze these or refrigerate them to firm it up. It depends on how quickly you want them to firm. But be sure to choose a surface that will actually fit into your refrigerator or freezer. So I'm gonna leave this here. Let's see if I can do it in a way that you can see. I'm just gonna leave this right here. And then on my plate, I'm gonna take a little bit more cacao powder and sprinkle it just a spoonful onto the surface of my plate. Just kind of the way you would flour a surface if you were making bread or something like that. So there was already a 1/4 cup of cacao powder. This is just going to be a little more. So the total recipe, you'll need about 1/3 of a cup of the cacao powder. And now I've got this little cookie scoop. Sometimes it's called a melon baller. It's got a squeeze release, which is great, like an ice cream scooper. And it's about a tablespoon, a scant tablespoon volume in this scooper. And I'm going to take my batter that I just made, the truffle batter, 1 scoop of it, just like this, and I'm going to drop it onto my plate that I've dusted with cacao powder. And now I'm going to take the plate, and I'm just going to roll this gently in the cacao powder, just like this. And then I want my truffle to be spherical, right? And that's kind of the traditional shape. So I'm going to use my hands here and roll it into a ball. And that's how easy it is to form these chocolate strawberry truffles. Looks just like this. And I'm going to place it on the parchment lined tray, just like that. And it's going to sit here, and I'll do another one just to show you. So I'm scooping out the fudge-like truffle batter here with my scooper, just like this. I'm dropping it onto the cacao dusted plate. And then I will roll the truffle around in the cacao. You can see it. And then as a last step, I will take it into my palms and roll it into a nicely formed ball. And I'll set it right next to the other truffle that I just made, and I'll show you what these look like on the tray, just like that. And that's how easy they are to make. You don't have to put them in the oven or anything. Once you have gone through the whole batter, you slide them into your freezer. You can freeze them overnight or to your refrigerator, and then they'll be ready to eat when you're ready to enjoy them. I would recommend pulling them out of the fridge about a half hour before you'd like to serve them. And you can enjoy them as your dessert after dinner. Maybe as you're serving the main course, take them out of the fridge, and then they'll be all ready for dessert. And if you'd like, you can even do a little bit of nice plating. Put them on a little dessert plate with a fresh strawberry. And I have my truffles that I made last night, and I pulled these out of the fridge. And so you can just plate them really prettily next to your fresh strawberry and a little bit of maybe a nice amla green mocktail. It's a really beautiful dessert, maybe some amla green coffee. Some people like to drink coffee with dessert. And this is how pretty it can look for your dessert, your at-home dinner date. These are so delicious. I'm going to take a bite of the ones I made yesterday right now. So good. Just rich and decadent in your mouth. It's so delicious. It's amazing. So that's how easy it is. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. Barbara asked, I was just able to join after several attempts. Okay, could we get or download the recipe? Let me recap the recipe for you right now. It's really easy. So if you want to grab a piece of paper, yes, we'll have a recording. You can catch the recording later too, but here's the recipe. It's a half cup of medjool dates that I've soaked in hot water to soften them first. A half cup of chopped strawberries, 1 tablespoon of 1 tablespoon of almond butter, 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then a 1/4 cup of cacao powder, a 1/4 cup of defatted or regular almond flour, and then 2 scoops of amla green elderberry tea, or you could use the hibiscus variety instead. You blend everything together. You make little 1 tablespoon truffles, roll them in a little bit of extra cacao powder, and that's it. You put them in the fridge or the freezer. So it's really, really yummy recipe. What is the measure of the amla scoop? That's a good question. The scoop comes in the jar, and it's tiny. It looks like maybe 1/4 to 1/2 of a teaspoon, but you would just use the scoop that comes with the amla green for that. And that's it, I guess. Some people often ask, cacao powder, what's the difference? Is it the same as cocoa powder? And the answer is that cacao powder is a little bit less processed. So it's a little bit more healthful of an ingredient. You can use cocoa powder instead if you'd like to, but check the ingredients because often cocoa powder, having been more processed, has also had some sugar and even some dairy incorporated into it. So when you're buying raw cacao powder, it's also usually pure cacao, less processed and more healthful. Our friends at On Green just said, we'll put the recipe in the comments after the live. Yeah, and you could also watch the replay. So you can check it out again if you need to fill in the notes that you weren't able to write down. Sounds really tasty, Carol says. Thank you. Yeah, it really is. And don't forget to get your coffee guide. All those yummy recipes, write the word coffee in the comments if you'd like to get all those extra recipes. So my friends, that is the demonstration today. Please let us know if you're going to make these, if you're celebrating whether it's romantic love or self-love this month. Let us know. It's been really, really a pleasure as always to make this recipe with you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.